right, good evening. It is 7 p.m. It looks like all seated commissioners are here. Let me double check the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so welcome. It's 2023. This is the first meeting of ANC 1C in Adams Morgan for the 2023 calendar year, 2023-2024 term. We technically don't have a chair yet, so we'll just all introduce ourselves and then get to our scheduled business. I guess we can do it in a numbered order. The districts have changed, so I know that this is a part of the meeting. It's easy to pass over, but pay attention, commissioners. Audience, pay attention to when the commissioners introduce themselves, their SMD, and the boundaries, because after the redistricting process, as of 2 days ago, those lines have changed a little bit for, I think, literally every SMD except for the one I represent. So there's no current commissioner for 1C01. We will start with 1C02, and I believe Lee is here. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee. I represent 1CO2, which is from Connecticut and Columbia, that wedge heading north and go on to 19th and then Belmont. By day, I'm a graphic designer, and I was encouraged to run for this seat and was running uncontested, and here I am.
Thank you. 1C03 is me. I'm Peter Wood. Starting in the middle. It hasn't changed. It was the one that's population changed like 11 people, so it stayed stable. Biltmore to Wyoming, 18th to 19th. 1C04, I believe Joe's here. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I lost the mute button there for a minute. Hi, my name is Joe Van Wy. I am the new commissioner for 1C04, which is sort of the north west corner of the ANC with Calvert Street up Adams Mill Road. And I'm excited to get started.
Thanks, Joe. 1C05. There we go.
Hello, I'm Margaret. I'm Margaret Stevens, commissioner for 1C05, I guess better known as Lanier Heights at the back of the zoo. By day, I'm an interior designer, and I'm just also very happy to get started. And I'm also very nervous, my first meeting, so good to be here. Thank you.
Got each other's backs. We'll be great. 1C06, you're up. Linda, you're there. Patience, everyone. Thank you. All right, well, we'll come back to Linda. 1C07, Commissioner Foskey.
Hi, thanks. Commissioner Jake Falaskini, 1C07, the heart of Adams Morgan. I will continue that. Goes from now it's a couple of blocks have been taken out, and one has been added to the district. So the district now runs from Florida up to Columbia, from 18th roughly over to 17th with a couple jigs and jags there. So it was a pleasure to serve last year. I was happy to be reelected. I'm very honored to serve again. And it's nice to be here and have our new commissioners present.
I agree. Thank you so much. 1C08, Commissioner Shapiro.
There we go, unmute. I'm Barney Shapiro. I'm 1C08, runs from 16th over to Ontario, from the south side of Kalorama down to the north side of Florida. Mostly, it's mostly Beekman Place and 1661 Crescent, and the apartment buildings on 16th Street, which make up the bulk of our population.
Much. Commissioner Laughlin, are you able to connect now? 1C07. Like we're having some sort of technical difficulties. She seems to be on, and even if she's not, we have a quorum. So she gets the opportunity in a second. We'll have her come back on. But until then, we can begin business. Like I said, we don't have an official chair yet. So in order to have a kind of neutral party monitor an election, Sean Sylvan is kind of our technical manager for all of our meetings. He's going to be doing that. Sean, here you go. Up to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wood. Just wanted to say, is there a nomination for chair of ANC 1C?
There is. I nominate Commissioner Peter Wood.
Is there a second to that nomination?
I second that nomination.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe we can now call for a vote.
Think we're
All
ready.
those in favor?
Aye.
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 I believe the ayes have it. We have five ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstentions. So congratulations, Commissioner Wood. I believe you are now the new chair of ANC Commission 1C.
Thank you so much, everyone. Excited to keep working together. It looks like Commissioner Laughlin is able to use the chat. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but if Sean, you're able to figure out if it's a panelist issue or something related. But
Okay, we'll do.
Someone was about to say something. Okay, we're good. So now we will turn to our officer positions and committee assignments for the year. So this is something that's done every year and obviously done when we have a new commission with new people, which is the case now. For transparency's sake, it's a common practice to discuss this in advance, where ideally we come to some sort of consensus without having to go to an individual vote. Of course, that's an option, but we did come to consensus, so that's pretty simple. And in that case, I'll nominate a slate of everything, so we don't have to have the individual votes. We can just vote on the slate. If anyone does have any last minute changes and chooses to object, you're free to do so, but I hope you don't. So I'll begin with the officer positions. Serving as vice chair, I nominate Commissioner Joe Van Wy. Serving as the treasurer, I nominate Commissioner Barney Shapiro, and as secretary, Commissioner Jake Falkskini. As representative to the Adams Morgan Business Improvement District, I nominate Commissioner Linda Laughlin. And committee assignments, I think I'll get these right. I should have written them down. They're somewhere. I'll go off of memory. So the Alcoholic Beverage Control and Public Safety Committee nominates Commissioner Falkskini to serve as chair alongside myself and Commissioner Shapiro. For the the PZT, Planning, Zoning, and Transportation, nominate, I should remember this, it's Commissioner Lee Dixon as the chair, and then Commissioners Falkskini and someone please help me, I'm blanking on the other two, what we decided on because it changed.
I think it's there in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, this is my perfect. Yeah, I should have had this in advance. And then Commissioners Stevens and Van Wy, and then Public Service and the Environment, nominate Commissioner Linda Laughlin as chair, Joe Van Wy, and Margaret Stevens to serve alongside. Any questions, comments, concerns with all that? I believe I got it right. That's what we had discussed and settled upon in advance to this meeting.
Do we need a resolution to approve those chairs? Or is that the discretion of the chair?
We just can vote on the slate, and that's, I believe, sufficient.
I so move the slate.
Point of information. Sorry, can I just clarify that we said for ABC, it's Peter, it's Jake, Barney, and Peter. For PZT, it's Lee, Margaret, Joe, and Jake. And for Public Services and the Environment, we said Linda, Joe, and Margaret.
Perfect. And I believe Kristen asked in the chat, just to clarify, Linda Laughlin is chair of the PSC committee. All right, that clear for everyone?
Yes.
So I will move that we vote on the slate. Can I get a second?
Second.
Perfect. All those in favor of our new officers and committee assignments for 2023, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Glad we have that settled. So now we will go into officers reports. We shouldn't have too much because we just started a few seconds ago. But I do have one announcement. So this probably could have been taken care of last term, but I think it'll be okay, which is because of redistricting, the bylaws that we have for ANC 1C technically need to be adjusted just to reflect the language that accurately describes what the boundaries of the ANC are. Striver section, which is in the southeast corner of what was ANC 1C, is no longer in ANC 1C. It's now ANC 1B. So we will need to adjust that, but in order to adhere to our current bylaws, it needs to be announced at least 21 days in advance of when that would be considered to be voted upon. So I'm making that announcement now. Very simple change. I already have just copied the language from the legislation. I'll distribute it after this meeting, but anticipate that being on the agenda for February, just so we make sure we have that in order. I don't think we'll have any issues with someone from that neighborhood claims to be part of this ANC in the meantime, but if it comes, we'll deal with it. So that's my chair announcement. I guess we'll move next to the vice chair. Do you have any announcements?
No, nothing's come up in my 2 days as commissioner that I feel like needs an announcement yet. So I will pass along to back to the chair.
And to the treasurer?
Nothing in my 2 days as commissioner. So I will pass it back to you.
Embrace it while you can. That will change soon. Next to the secretary, Commissioner Falskini.
My only announcement is that we will be voting on our meetings upcoming for the year in our consent agenda. We are planning to hold to the same schedule that we've held to for several years now in 1C, having our ANC meeting on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m., our ABC meeting the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m., the PZT meeting the third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m., and our Public Services and the Environment Committee meeting the fourth Wednesday at 7 p.m. And the committees will have similar jurisdiction as in the past. So that's the plan. It'll be in the consent agenda.
Correct. Just about to add that note that we will vote on that, but in a little bit. So it is in the consent agenda. So now we'll move to commissioner announcements. Anything that's specific to your SMD, we'll take it the reverse order. 1C08, Commissioner Shapiro. Anything else?
No announcements at this time.
1C07.
Actually,
no announcements. Although we did have a rat victory in the neighborhood in the SMD over the last week, where we got a building to fence their garbage cans finally, so that hopefully the neighboring buildings will not get so many rats from their trash. So that was an exciting victory.
That's good to hear. Rat victory evoked different emotions. I'm glad to let rats lost this one. 1C06. There, you're connected, aren't you? So feel free to introduce yourself. You're glad you connected. So you can.
Hi. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting the Zoom meeting to work on my laptop, so I'm using my phone. So hi, sorry I missed introductions. I'm Linda Laughlin, newly elected for 1C06, part of Linear Heights. Fairly excited to serve this term and work with the fellow commissioners and the neighborhood, and no announcements from our area as of yet.
Glad to see you. 1C05, Commissioner Stevens.
There's a little bit of an announcement. Our Joseph's house is in danger, but I will be expounding upon that at a later date. So that was very disappointing news to hear. But anyway, like I say, I'll get into that more as we go at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's definitely something, we have a lot of pretty amazing community organizations in Adams Morgan, so definitely want to do what we can within our purview to support them. And Joseph House is great. 1C04, Commissioner Van Wy. Any announcements?
Nope, nothing from me.
1C03 is me. I don't have anything firm. I think I spent like the last 2 years every month saying I was about to say that some sort of cleanup was about ready. I'll say that this month too. I want to start planning another cleanup soon, so be ready for that. Beyond that, some other issues that have continued to come up. The rat issue is, incessant. And then also some others that have to do with vacant properties, but I won't spend the time here. Hopefully we'll have more concrete things in the future. One thing that is concrete, I've had lots of people reach out about on Columbia Road, which goes right through the core of 1C03. They repaved part of it, and because of that, a lot of the lines were gone for the crosswalks and for other things. I believe the process is finally advanced to where that painting is happening. Rest assured they will, at least I very much hope, anticipate that those lines will be fully intact. There's also the new phase of replacing lead piping, which was on Wyoming, I believe, mid 2022, in the 1800 block of Calorama this past fall and winter, which the project took 4 months longer than expected. And then they're moving towards the segment, I believe, between Mintwood and 18th of Columbia. So expect some sort of construction to begin there shortly as well. And then related to that, the conversion of the Wyoming and Calorama blocks has been approved. There have been finalized plans shared by DDOT. I don't believe they've posted those publicly, but they're ready to get that moving hopefully soon. So ideally next month we'll have an announcement. Don't hold me to that. It's out of my hands, but it's stuff that is moving. I'm happy to announce that some projects that were very slow to go seem to be getting some daylight. So glad to have that. I'll shut up. 1C02. Go ahead.
I have nothing to report at this time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Now we have some time for public announcements. Go ahead, Commissioner Faustini.
Sorry, I had realized that we did have one other announcement, which was the vacancy for 1C01 and when it'll be posted. Would you like to do that, or would you like me to do that?
You can go ahead.
Okay, we heard from very sad that we're losing our colleague Howard Balke, who was just a wonderful commissioner. He needed to retire because he had some health concerns that came up. So he submitted his official resignation to the Office of Elections and the Office of ANC. They said that they were actually able to get it into the register pretty quickly right after he made the announcement. And I'm trying to look in my email to make sure that I've got the exact dates correct. But I believe that they're putting it in the register
in 2 days, I believe.
In 2 days on Friday, January 6th, that's going to be posted as a vacancy, which means petitions will be available for pickup on Monday, January 9th. So just so the public is aware, that vacancy will be posted on the 6th. Petitions will be available on the 9th. And then I believe it's 30 days from the start of those petitions to the end run of when someone would take their new seat if they were to get all of their petitions signed in time and submitted to the office. So please follow all the laws and rules that are written on the Office of ANC and the Office of Elections website. And good luck. I hope that people apply.
Well said. Thank you for sharing all that. And definitely share our best wishes and recovery for now former Commissioner Balke. He is great. Commissioner Shapiro, you have something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to bring forth a concept that perhaps, particularly since we have 2 vacancies, because we have the other vacancy for the new SMD, and particularly for the new SMD, we might want to reprogram some funds and do a mailing to it to explain what it is, what we are, why it's new, and why there was no one there, to see if we can perhaps garner some interest.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Definitely something we could talk about outside of this meeting. I definitely would want to pass it by ONC and possibly other agencies just to make sure we're clear on ethical boundaries of spending money on things. But regardless, if people are interested, contact us. If we have the opportunity to tell people who seem interested, all to do that. So we'll advance to public announcements. Please keep in mind that you'll be held to roughly 2 minutes. If you're making good thoughts that are contributing to the community, I'll be fluid with that. But if you're being repetitive and difficult and not adhering to decorum, you will be asked to kindly stop or interrupted. Hopefully we don't find out how that goes. But if there's anyone who wishes to speak at this time, please raise your hand. I believe we have Kristen Barden up first, who is here from the Adams Morgan Partnership and Business Improvement District. Happy New Year, Kristen. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. So I don't see that there's an option to turn on my camera. Anyway, I have a couple of things to share, mostly about our recent holiday events. Okay, I can join us.
Should be good now, Kristen. Sorry.
just a moment.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Nice to meet the new commissioners. Congratulations. We've had an opportunity to have coffee with a couple of you. So, and the invitation is extended to all of the new commissioners. So if you're available to have coffee with my colleague Brian and I at some point in the next couple of weeks, please let us know. We're happy to do that, introduce ourselves, introduce all of the work of the bid. So just a couple of real quick things on the holiday programming. Hopefully some of you were able to catch the holiday caroling events that we did in the plaza around the holiday gift boxes. The gift boxes and all of the street light decorations will be taken down tomorrow. Our installer, who is based in Delaware, he also stores everything for us out there, is coming tomorrow, and he'll take down all the flitter decorations, the pole wraps, the other decorative stuff around the light poles, except for the banners. The banners will stay. And then he's going to disassemble the gift boxes. This is the last year for the gift boxes. They are very expensive to store. And so we're reevaluating the holiday display stuff. We'll do something again next year in the plaza, but something that's lighter weight, hopefully, and is easier to maintain. Those gift boxes were really fun and were a great idea that we did in during the pandemic, the first year in 2020, but they've kind of lived their life, and now they're getting very difficult to maintain and to store, expensive to store. So, anyway, we so there'll be something new and fun coming there next year around the holidays. Starting with our 2023 event programming, we're going to bring back date nights again in January and February, and we're going to do some speed dating events at some of the local businesses. So for you single folks, you might be interested in checking that out. There'll be more coming out about that. And we're also going to bring back ADMO Acts of Kindness, and that'll probably be right on Valentine's Day. Some of you might remember that from the past. So look forward to that. That's a really fun event, and it'll be a nice surprise. And then the Art Walk is another event that we started during the pandemic. We do that in partnership with DC Art Center, and we partner local artists with businesses. And I think last year we had 12 locations, maybe 12 or 13. I think the first year we had 10. So we're going to be doing that again, probably March, April timeframe. We're going to start meetings with DC Art Center soon. We have an intern who's coming on board in a couple of weeks, and so that's going to be her primary focus is the ADMO Art Walk. Let's see. We're also considering doing a spring Porch Fest. I think you're probably all familiar with the fall Porch Fest, which has been an overwhelming success the last few years. Each year it gets bigger and bigger. And so because of that success, we're going to try to add a spring Porch Fest and call it Porch and Pedal, and really encourage more bicyclists to come. We're going to meet with WABA to involve them a little bit more in the planning of that. And we would do it right after Bike to Work Day. We'd do it that Saturday. I think Bike to Work Day is May 19th. So this would probably be May 20th is what we would aim to do, and to pick up on all that momentum around cycling. And let's see, ADMO Vibe, that was our summer concert series that we did last August. We're planning to bring that back again this August. It will probably be on Wednesdays since there's no ANC meetings in August, or at least there's not likely to be. So we can take over those Wednesday nights in August for that. And then our movie nights that we do on the Marie Reed Field, we'll be bringing those back in May. And we're adding a sixth movie. So we've generally done 5. We're going to add a 6th one this year. Again, pending all of the sponsorships coming through, because that's a really expensive event for us. Some of the other bids do 10, 15 movies. We've only been able to afford to do 5. We're going to try to do 6 this year. And those will start May 23rd. and will run through June 27th. The rain date is July 11th. And the theme this year is going to be comedy. So there'll be more coming on that. So I won't spoil all of the surprise. And let's see. I think that's about it. Oh, and the bus shelter posters. Those have all been up for a few years now. Some of them are beginning to fade and to kind of disintegrate. So we'll be refreshing those later this spring as well. So you can look for some interesting bus shelter posters to come soon. So and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. That's a lot. I'm excited. And if there's musicians out there, I feel like you could get in, you have a lot of opportunities to share your skills in town. So get in touch.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
Well, one question for you. Have you ever
sure.
considered, in addition to musical events, particularly the pedal and the porch pedal, storytelling?
Yeah, we've done that in Unity Park. We have drag queen story hours that we've done in partnership with the public library. And we will probably be bringing those back later this spring as well. Those are really weather dependent. I think we started those in April last year, if I remember correctly. And we did those once a month on Sunday mornings, I think at 11. And we had different drag queens come and read stories to kids. And then the public library brought their bookmobile. It's a bicycle with books on it. And kids could check out books right there in the park. And it's a really popular event. We always had a good solid 35, 40, sometimes 50 people. So depending on the weather. But yeah.
Not story books, storytelling, because there's a lot of storytelling that goes on in DC, like the Moth. Are you familiar with the Moth?
Oh, the Moth Radio Hour. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have in DC. There's a huge storytelling community. It's headquartered with Story District, which is over on Georgia Avenue. There might be some possibilities there, and I'll give you a contact there when we have coffee.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Would love to hear more ideas. One of the things our board of directors is going to be doing the next couple of months is doing some strategic planning, specifically around marketing and events. So if folks have ideas like that they'd like us to consider, please let us know. So that strategic planning will probably happen in the end of February, I think.
Love to see the collaboration. Any other questions, comments from commissioners for Kristen? All right, thank you so much. Glad to see you.
Yeah, sure. Take care.
And I believe we have Lauren from Councilmember Brianna Doe's office. Welcome to the January ANC 1C meeting. Waiting on some technical changes. Just a moment, please.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Now we are. Welcome. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I'm good. I'm going to start my video, although it hasn't been working. Yeah, looks like that's not going to work tonight. Apologies. I am Lauren Lipsey. I'm new in the office as of Monday, but I am representing 1C now in Councilmember Nadeau's office. So I am a resident of 1C as well, so I'm very familiar with the area, and I'm really excited to get to know it even further and to work with all of you in the coming session. Just have a few updates, and I'm going to, be reading from something that was prepared just so that I get it correct on my third day, and you all are as informed as I am on this. So Councilmember Nadeau will chair the Committee on Public Works and Operations, which is a new committee for her. On this committee, the Department of Public Works and the committee team will tackle waste reduction, keeping streets and neighborhoods clean, and addressing parking enforcement challenges across the city. So some of the things that you've mentioned tonight will be well under our purview going forward. And I will drop 2 links in the chat when I'm done here, because the committee website is updated with that information, and our staff website is also updated with current information on staffing, because there have been some changes in recent weeks and months. The committee also includes a new Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection, which I know is of great interest to a lot of people, the Office of Contracting and Procurement, the Department of For-Hire Vehicles, Department of Human Resources, Office of Administrative Hearings, Office of Risk Management, Contract Appeals Board, and shared oversight of the Deputy Mayor for Operations and Infrastructure. So it is a big breadth of responsibility, and thank you for your patience as we get up to speed on kind of all of our new responsibilities and all of the issues that will be facing us. Not that all of you need to remember this, it is on our website. We have moved to room 108 in the Wilson building. So still on the first floor, very accessible. Our committee director for the Committee on Public Works and Operations will be Eric Irving. I am a new constituent services specialist. And then we have a new communications director as well, and his name is David. So all of us are in the office for the most part and certainly accessible. And we look forward to working with all of you. Just of note, we have an upcoming Brianne on Your Block, and we'll be sending around that information that it'll occur later this week or this month, excuse me. And we hope that everyone comes out to kind of re-get to know us or introduce yourselves if we haven't met you before. So thank you for the time.
Of course. Thank you so much, Lauren. Any questions or comments from commissioners while we have her here? And that's pretty new. I'll ask one. It's something that we've spent a lot of time in the past, well, we being the former commission, I suppose, was legislation that Commissioner Nadeau really helped push forward, which is for safe walkways to schools. Is that something that you can give some sort of update or just kind of comment on the progress of that?
I do not have any information on that now, but I can certainly go find that for you and be in communication with you so you can share with the rest of the commissioners. And I can certainly go seek that information and give an update at next month's meeting.
Perfect. I know you're new, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Falaskini, go ahead.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you, Lauren. Thank you so much for your 2 days of service in the council member's office, but also for everything that the council member does for the district. It's greatly appreciated. One thing I wanted to ask you about and just put on your radar is that last year, the council budget included funding to do a resurfacing of Unity Park up on Columbia and Euclid. And we've gotten a couple of updates from DPR that they're submitting a request, but nothing seems to be moving on it. And so I was just hoping that you might be able to put that on your radar as one of the things that you're working on to make sure that DPR actually gets the contracts and gets the work done as soon as the weather permits it to get done this year.
No, thank you for raising that. That's important for me to know. So I will certainly go seek out information to get up to speed on that project and can also provide an update on that next month.
Thank you so much.
That reminds me, I wanted to add one other thing actually. So for the last 2 years, I spent a bit of time talking to DPR and Councilmember Nadeau and some others about the park that is immediately adjacent to Calorama Park. I believe Mr. Hargrove is here. It's named after his late wife. It's called Ann Hughes Hargrove Park. As far as I know, there's $100,000 in a bank account that's slated specifically to renovate that. So if we could get that to happen, that'd be great. So put that on, note that down.
I'll follow up on that as well. I appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any other questions, comments from commissioners for Lauren? Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. I guess not really welcome to the neighborhood, but welcome to this role in your relationship.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be able to join you all every month and work with you.
Looking forward to it. Have a great night.
Okay.
And it looks like we have Kristen. You have another comment? Your hand's back up. Just a moment, please. Here we go. Kristen, your hand was raised again. Do you have another comment?
Yep, sorry. It just took me a minute to join as panelist again. So yeah, I was just going to say that for Brianne's new staff member, sorry, I didn't get your name. The funding for the Unity Park renovations were part of the fiscal year 2022 budget. So hopefully that money has not been reallocated or returned to DPW or to DPR for other purposes. Hopefully that's been set aside because it was substantial funding. I think it was, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was around $70,000. Yeah, so hopefully that funding is still in place to make that happen.
It was 70,000 split between two. It was 80,000 split between two parks. So it was 40,000 for Unity.
Okay.
And 40 for the other, but it is still a substantial amount of money. You're right.
Right. Yeah. So, I guess it'd be important to make sure that DPR still has that money set aside for Unity Park. I guess it was another Ward 1 park. I don't remember which one. But does anyone know if that work happened? That other park? Okay.
I don't know whether or not the other one, it's not in 1C, so I wasn't tracking it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it'd be important to keep track of that money to make sure that it gets to Unity Park.
Perfect. Thank you for those comments. Anyone else in the audience, if you'd like to comment, this is your time. Speak now or hold your peace for a month or send us emails. All right. So seeing no hands, I will advance in the agenda. So we have the consent agenda. I do want to make one comment, I guess two. So one, just for our reference as we go forward, if anyone ever objects to an item that's in the consent agenda and wants to actually discuss it, it just takes one commissioner. You're free to say so. Then we take it off of the consent agenda, put it on the regular agenda. For transparency's sake, I'm going to remove what's currently listed as item B, approve the fiscal year 2023 quarter 1 financial report, because that report is not ready yet. I could have done this earlier, but just want to make sure it's clear. Our due date is mid-February for that to be submitted, so we'll be able to discuss it at the February meeting once it's all properly assembled. So that's not going to be on tonight's consent agenda. Everything else is, the rest of the items are items that we need to address at our first meeting to kind of start off the year. One of those, as Commissioner Falaskini said earlier, is the meeting schedule. We plan on, the proposal is to plan the same meeting schedule, which is Wednesdays, ABC, PZT, PSC in that order. And then if there's a 5th Wednesday a month, we don't meet. So we'll have some of those. Any questions, comments about the consent agenda just while we're here? It looks like Commissioner Shapiro has something. Go ahead.
Just for people's edification, the first Wednesday of April is the first night of Passover. I don't think there's anybody else who's a commissioner that can't be there, but I won't be able to be present.
That should be.
I don't.
Yeah.
Huh?
That should not be a problem as long as we have.
Yeah, I just so everyone knows it. I don't think you should change it. I'm perfectly glad leaving it the way it is.
I appreciate that. That's a helpful comment. Commissioner Falaskini.
I just wanted to offer a friendly amendment to the ANC Security Fund resolution to edit it from $25 to $50.
I should have mentioned that. I've done that already. So it's taken care of. So yeah,
Thank you.
Just to clarify what that is, every year the ANC gets asked to put some money into an account. It's a small amount of money. The amount is for $25 to $50, but that's what the current language reflects $50. Any other questions, comments? All right, so seeing as there's none, we'll vote on the consent agenda. All those who are in favor, please say aye.
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 You need a second for the consent agenda?
I should know that. I thought we didn't, but let's do it just in case. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, so the motion on the floor is the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. So we'll move on. If no one has any objection, I think, so the order of the agenda is according to the chronological order of the committee meetings, but out of respect for our guests who are the last agenda item, I'd like to put them in front. Does anyone have any problem with that? I think we should do that. So to be more specific, from the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee that met in December, we have a continuation of that presentation, which is from the 1825 to 1875 Connecticut Avenue redevelopment project, which is often known as the Universal Building. So there are few people, well, wait a second, they're getting nominated right now by Sean, but we have a few of our participants that are here to share a bit, spend a few minutes showing what is planned, and give a little bit of opportunity for Q&A just on how the project is developing. or moving forward. No pun intended. All right, we have at least one. I don't know who's going to lead off, so whoever wants to start, you can feel free to just unmute yourself. It looks like we've got people raising their hands, so that's helpful. All right, who wants to start? We had some email correspondence before, so I'm not sure who the best person to lead it off is, but it's up to you. Welcome.
Hi, I can lead off. Can everybody hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for having us. I'm Mike Pestrunk, the co-founder and CEO of Post Brothers, the developer of this project. I'm on the line with my colleague Serena Rose, our Senior Vice President of Development, Gary Handel, founder of Handel Architects, who's executing the project, Abigail Brady, his associate, who's controlling the presentation, Zach Williams, our land use attorney from the law firm Venable, and Erwin Anders, our transportation consultant from Grove Slade. And my colleague Josh, who's on the zoning committee preview meeting with some of you here, unfortunately had a family commitment tonight. Otherwise, he was going to talk. But I'll give you a quick background on us. Post Brothers was founded in 2006 by my brother Matt and I. Since then, we've developed about 25 properties with a little over 6,000 residential units, with about $4 billion in total project cost. We've done adaptive reuse, conversions from offices and warehouses. We've done renovations of residential buildings. We've done ground up construction, but all multifamily concentric. We've done a lot of conversions, and we've developed a specialty in really large scale projects like this one. So we're super excited for this project and some other ones that we're potentially looking at as similar office to residential conversions in the city. We put together a really world-class design team for this. Handel Architects, who's working on the project, we genuinely believe to be probably the best apartment building architect in the world. We've tried to put together a team of experts who are who know how to make buildings that are timeless and contextually appropriate and beautiful. And so to explain just what we're looking at on the screen, can you guys see the presentation? Is it up?
I believe we can.
Yes. Yeah. So what we're looking at, we want to replace the facade of the building, leaving the structure. And we want to do that, one, to really make it an appealing place to live, which it doesn't, it's not in its current state. And two, to bring it up to modern energy efficiency standards, which is, a big issue. And so we really want this to be the highest quality example of an office to residential conversion that exists in the city. We think it can be. But there are a few challenges when converting an office building of this vintage into workable residential, and a building of this scale. This building is probably 3 times the scale of any new purpose-built apartment building in the city. It's just over 1 million square feet. So the solutions to some of those issues aren't totally compatible with the codes, and that's really what we're here about. We're going to explain what's not compatible with the codes and why, and hopefully you'll maybe agree that it's for understandable reasons. And Gary, our architect, and Erwin, our transportation consultant, will tell you all about those things. Really quick, just touching on the location for everybody's benefit. The location is 1825 to 75 Connecticut. It's the property fronts on Connecticut, but it also is bordered by T Street and Florida. It's 2 blocks north of DuPont Circle, across the street from the Hilton. It's adjacent to Adams Morgan, obviously. It's also on the other side, adjacent to Calorama. And, with this very central location, we touch 3 ANCs, Adams Morgan being the primary ANC, but also DuPont and Calorama. And anyway, the property is 2 blocks from the metro, as you probably know, and there's incredible pedestrian and bike and transit and car access. And frankly, it's the best location you could really ask for to make an apartment building. So we're super excited about this project. And so I'll turn it over to Gary Handel, our architect, who will tell you about the design.
Thank you, Mike, and welcome, commissioners. And we're incredibly pleased to be here and to share this with you. My name is Gary Handel, and I'm the managing partner of Handel Architects. We're the architects for the project. Our firm is over 200 architects, planners, and designers, and our work consists of some of the most sustainable residential, commercial, and institutional projects in the world. We've done more than 150 large-scale multifamily projects, including around a dozen in the district and its surroundings. We love to work on projects that we think will have a positive impact on the communities in which they're located and with owners that we believe share our values. This is such a project. And as Mike mentioned, our goal for this project is to transform this well-located, outdated building into a contributing asset to the neighborhood. We envision recreating the building as something timeless, classic, and elegant, and a building that you'd be proud to call home. On the screen, you can see the site plan on the bottom right. Its triangular footprint is bordered by Florida, Connecticut, and T Streets. There's a significant grade change to be accommodated on the site with a vertical grade differential of over 30 feet from the intersection of Florida and Connecticut up to T Street. Currently, there are two office buildings on the site, Universal South, built in 1956 by Leroy Warner, and Universal North, built in 1962 by Edwin Watt. While not inappropriate for their time, the relentless and overpowering facades of these buildings are not up to current standards, nor do we believe that they make a positive contribution to the neighborhood. As Mike mentioned, we'll be stripping off the existing cladding and replacing it with something more refined in its modulation, proportion, and materiality in order to make it more suitable for its intended residential use. We'll be demolishing the theater appendage along Florida Avenue in order to make room for the new entry garden, creating a sense of arrival and a sense of home. Here's a view from the corner of Key Street in Florida, looking towards the south. You can see the two wings of the building as they would look after being renovated, framing the new entry garden. As you can see, we took inspiration from the modern but classically inspired residential architecture that can be found throughout Washington, D.C. and European cities such as Paris and London. We also attempted to capture the pre-war elegance that could be found in New York's Upper West Side along Central Park and also along Park Avenue. You can get a glimpse of the architectural strategies that we used to break up the building into a number of components to counterbalance that relentlessness. We employed the use of bay windows, Juliet balconies, inset terraces, and areas of punched windows, contrasted with areas of floor-to-ceiling glass to syncopate and modulate the facades and to introduce an elegant proportionality to those facades. We'll be using a stone facade to evoke characteristics of the classic and elegant residential designs of the best buildings in the previously mentioned cities. On the northern wing, we've replaced the existing penthouse with one new floor plus a penthouse structure containing the building's mechanical systems, as well as a number of apartment units. All of the mechanical systems will be fully screened with facades in keeping with the building's elegance. On the southern wing, we've replaced the existing penthouse with two new floors plus a penthouse structure containing more fully screened mechanicals, as well as some of the building's amenity spaces. This includes a large outdoor terrace for the use of all residents in the building. All of this is within the, as of right, 100-foot building height limit, plus the 20-foot allowance for penthouse structures. Looking from the south, you can see that we've designed large solariums on the upper floor corners to bring light into those units that are especially deep in plan. These solariums also provide a strong visual anchor for the building's corners and a strong contrast with the stone facades. Along with the setbacks across multiple floors, we've been able to have the building meet the sky in what we consider a more graceful manner while bringing light into these deep units. The building will have great views sitting high on a hill. We'd love to bring in those views to as many units as possible. Using various architectural elements and design strategies that we've mentioned previously, we've been able to have a building meet the sky in a more graceful manner. This view is from the southwest, looking at the Connecticut Avenue facade with the entry court between the two wings of the building visible towards the upper left. You can see here how the penthouse structure on the south wing is quite significant in an attempt to reduce the building's bulk, where the building is at its highest off of the adjacent grade, and to afford all of the residents access to an amenity terrace where they can enjoy these great views out over the district. And this view is of the northwest corner at the corner of Key Street in Connecticut, with the court between the two buildings and between the two wings of the building visible on the right. You can see all of the other elements that we've spoken about earlier, as well as a series of townhouses along Key Street, which will be articulated with a masonry expression to create a sense of individuality for this set of unique apartments. In this section, you can see where we're adding the new floors. Note that we plan to demolish a poorly built penthouse structure and build new floors above the red dashed line here that will align with a more thoughtful design for the residential architecture. You can also see how the two wings of the building connect both on the lower floors via the lobby and service spaces, as well as an elevated corridor on the upper floors. You'll also notice how the grade change is significant enough to create a multi-story differential, which I'll talk about a little bit in more detail. And you can also see here the large elevated courtyard that we've added to help us tackle the overly deep floor plates and provide ample amounts of natural lighting into the amenity spaces, along with the setbacks that we're using on the main facades. The courtyard is located on top of existing parking that occupies the center of the southern wing. Returning to the parking, our traffic engineer will discuss it in more detail, but we currently are showing 454 parking spaces being proposed, a reduction from the 663 in the existing building. At the end of the renovation, the building will have a number of entrances for the residents in an effort to address the size of the building. The most grand of these is off of the entry garden on what we're calling the second floor level. There are additional entries on the third level off of Connecticut, as well as two more convenience entrances along T Street on the third and fourth level. We've placed active retail uses all along the street fronts, except where lobby entrances and the occasional points of egress are located. You can also see here the entry garden, which we're working in collaboration with Hollander Design, whom we consider one of the best landscape architects in the world, and how we're bringing cars, loading vehicles, trash vehicles, and residents to the site. Cars will enter here, drop off here, and enter the garage. There will also be another garage entrance off of T Street. Loading will occur off of Florida Avenue and T Street, and there'll be a pedestrian path up through the arcade that connects Florida Avenue with the main lobby. This slide summarizes some of the various zoning requirements. Zach Williams of Venable will address the issues raised in this and later in the presentation. This diagram highlights the resultant lot after combining parcel 1 and parcel 2 a few years ago. This will be developed as one building as a single unified project, and all of the zoning references will be based on it being a single lot. The orange area shows the demolition of the existing theater being done to accommodate the entry garden where the building is, when the building is adapted to its residential use. The existing building footprint can be seen here highlighted in gray. The existing penthouses are highlighted in blue with various setback distances at the penthouse level. The proposed building footprint is shown in gray, showing the reduction in overall site coverage by the removal of the existing theater, and the proposed penthouse footprint is highlighted in blue. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Zach Williams of Venable.
Thank you, Gary, and good evening. My name is Zach Williams. I'm a land use attorney with Venable, representing Post Brothers of this project. In the interest of time, I'm going to briefly walk through the zoning application tonight, and if there are questions, we can discuss each of those in further detail after the presentation. As a general point, this project is essentially a by right project from a zoning perspective, with the exception of 3 areas of special exception relief that are needed given the fact that this is a conversion of an existing 60s era office building. The conversion itself to residential is allowed as a matter of right, and the height and the density proposed is all permitted as a matter of right within the MU9B zoning district here. The three areas of relief needed, however, are for penthouse setbacks, courts, and side yards. Each of these items of relief can be approved by the BZA, the Board of Zoning Adjustment, with a special exception. Now, we just very recently filed our BZA application a few weeks ago, and at this time we are scheduled for a public hearing on March 15th. Next slide, please. As some of you may be familiar, there are sort of two general standards that the BZA looks to when considering special exceptions. The first is whether the relief is in harmony with the general intent of the zoning regulations. And the second standard is whether or not the relief would adversely affect neighboring properties. And typically we think about light, air, and privacy. Next slide, please. Starting with the penthouse setbacks that Gary touched upon in his presentation, there are several reasons why the relief is needed and why we believe we meet the standards here for a special exception. The most important item is that this is a conversion. This is a conversion of buildings that were built in the 1950s and 1960s for offices. In order to convert the buildings to residential in the year 2023, there are certain zoning issues that come up that we need relief for. The footprint, the layout, the structural, mechanical layout and issues in the existing buildings provide that the penthouses and the way that those are laid out and structured require certain relief for setbacks. Generally, penthouses are required to be set back on a 1-to-1 ratio. So you're required to set back the penthouse as high as the penthouses are built, in this case, 20 feet. That's not possible here, given the existing buildings that we're dealing with. The setbacks would also significantly restrict the usable penthouse area, given the layout of the building. The fact that these were built as two buildings, ultimately joined as one, the penthouse would be restricted in its usable area if we were to attempt to build in the required setbacks. Finally, the relief, the penthouse setback relief is primarily sought inward facing to the site. As you may have seen on the slide where Gary was talking about the proposed penthouses, those penthouses are pulled back off of Florida and Connecticut Ave, the most prominent corner of the site, and are inward facing, if you will. Same thing on the north building wing. And that, we believe, will reduce any potential impacts on neighboring properties. Next slide, please. The next item relief are courts. Courts are sort of an esoteric zoning issue in DC. A court is any time that two building walls face one another within a site. Here, there is one large existing court that exists between the two building wings. If you're familiar with the site, as I said, these were built as two buildings. They were ultimately joined on several levels, but that space in between is considered a court. When you add to or change the height of the buildings, that court is now out of conformance and you need zoning relief for that. That's an existing condition. We are also proposing a new courts at the top levels of the building. And Gary talked a little bit about the terraces and some of the setbacks there. Like I said, every time a building wall faces another building wall in any way, that's considered a court in DC. And each time that we present that on the top levels, that requires zoning relief. But we feel strongly, as Gary said, from a design standpoint, that those will provide for and assist and accommodate the residential conversion of this building and bring light and air to those top levels. There's also mechanical and structural reasons why those court relief is needed. Again, we're adding to a building that was built in the 50s and the 60s. So we're working with an existing building and trying to accommodate that in creating apartments, residential apartments in a world-class building that's that can move forward in 2023 and beyond. Given that the courts are inward facing, again, the largest court is completely inward to the site, and those other courts are at the top levels of the building, the very top, we believe those will, again, have very limited impacts on neighboring properties. Next slide. Finally, the last area of relief that we need is for side yards. The side yards here are not going to change. The existing buildings as built are not in conformance with the zoning regulations. Certain side yards are required. As folks know that are familiar with the site, this building touches the property line on all three corners of this block. And so when you add to the building, you need zoning relief. Even though the buildings were built in such a way that's not in conformance. That's okay as long as it doesn't change. As soon as you make a change, you need relief. However, the footprint of the buildings isn't going to change other than the removal of the theater building. So this is really just sort of a technical requirement that we need in order to add another level and the penthouse onto the top of the building. Again, we don't think this will create impacts, especially at street level, because those footprints are not changing. They're staying just the way they have been since the 50s and the 60s. That concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over now to our traffic engineer, Erwin, to take the traffic portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Zach. Good evening. My name is Erwin Andrus, Vice President of Grove Slate Associates. I manage our Washington, D.C. office, actually just located 6 blocks south of the subject location at 1140 Connecticut Avenue. In terms of location, I believe Gary and Michael had done a good job identifying where the site is. So we can go on to the next slide. I think relative to the conversion of office to residential, in our industry, it's a fact that per square foot, office generates more traffic than residential. Considering that, and considering that we are reducing the amount of retail on site, the net benefit relative to traffic is that over the course of the peak hour, both in the morning and the afternoon, the number of trips that are going to be reduced because of these changes is pretty significant. Understanding that, we are providing parking that we believe is adequate to serve the market demand for the residential. It's also important to note that we work on numerous residential projects throughout the district, and this amount of parking is almost unprecedented relative to other large developments in the district that we've worked on. Understanding that, we are committed as a team to provide sustainable transportation demand management measures, transportation demand management measures to incentivize people not to drive. However, we are providing the number of parking spaces because of the fact that they're already built. We're not planning on building these spaces. These are spaces that are currently built as part of the office complex, and we're reducing it to provide an additional program, but the net number of parking spaces is adequate for the amount of program that we're proposing. Next slide. In addition to the traffic impact, it's important that we identify the proposed access. Gary had gone through some of the access elements. I just want to go through quickly what we are proposing as part of the project. On the left, we're identifying 3 curb cuts that are currently existing. On the right, we're proposing 2 additional curb cuts, 1 additional loading curb cut that will provide for loading along T Street. And then along Florida Avenue, we are introducing 1 wide 36-foot curb cut that's separated by an inbound and an outbound. I think it's important to note that the reason why we are introducing this new entrance on Florida Avenue is that we're creating an entry plaza that would allow for potential stacking that can occur associated with Ubers, with different rideshare vehicles, with short-term food deliveries. We wanted to minimize the impact of those residential elements on the public streets by making sure that activity can take place on site and would not affect the traffic flows on the surrounding neighborhood streets. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Michael for some closing comments.
Thank you. So yeah, I think hopefully that gives everybody a good overview. I think the rehab will be a really high quality addition to the neighborhood, and we'd be happy to answer any additional questions. Anybody, is now an appropriate time for questions?
Yeah, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation and felt very informative. So there are some questions in the chat. I will come to those in a little bit after seeing if commissioners have some questions or comments. Is there one here? Commissioner Falaskini, your hand up first. Please go ahead.
Sorry, just took me a second to get off mute. Thank you all for this presentation. I won't belabor this since we already met at the PZT committee meeting. I think this is a fabulous design. It fits the neighborhood really well. I'd note that just across the block, this is zoned to even higher and more density in an MU20 zone just across the street. So I think this is very fitting. I would be open to higher FAR to more FAR and to even more height if it increased the amount of inclusionary zoning in the building. I appreciate that you all will be, at the IZ levels that you're at. I'd also advocate for more family size inclusionary zoning units, and that they just be distributed equally throughout the building. But I appreciate this design very much, and I look forward to supporting it and working with you all in the months ahead.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'll second those thoughts. We definitely talk quite a bit about, as a commission, the importance of affordable housing and the different mechanisms to bring that to the neighborhood. So if that's something that we can push forward, definitely eager to engage.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, we will utilize the IZ. There'll be at least 40 units of IZ housing, which I think is a lot. I mean, for relative to most projects, and like you said, it'll be distributed. We're not trying to pay a fee in lieu of doing on-site or doing anything like a corridor entrance or anything like that. They'll be distributed, and there'll be an even mix of the IZ units will be evenly represented by the different unit types in the building. And for what it's worth, we are doing, I think, bigger than average apartments. Our average apartment will be closer to 1,000 to 1,100 feet, whereas most new apartment buildings are probably more like 700 square feet. So we do and have lots of 2 and 3 bedrooms and family-oriented units.
Yeah, that's helpful information. And those are large units. Congratulations to whoever gets one. Commissioner Shapiro, you have your hand up.
As long as you're on the issue of the inclusionary zoning, what is the actual mix in terms of size of the units? In other words, studios, 1s, 2s, 3s. I'm assuming there are no 4s.
Actually, I think there will be a handful of 4s. We are
Really?
still finalizing the mix, although we're pretty close. But as we progress through the design, lots of little things change, including just the layout of mechanical systems, how they affect things. So, but to give you the short answer, of approximately 600 units, approximately 15% will be studios, approximately 35% will be 1 bedrooms, approximately 30% will be 2 bedrooms, and approximately 20% will be 3 and larger.
Since this is not new construction, to follow up on that issue, on the issue of inclusionary, do you have ADA requirements for apartments since it's not new construction?
Yes.
Okay.
The short answer is it's going to comply with all modern codes, including ADA. And I believe, Gary, is it right to say we're subject to the same requirements as a new building, or there's some relief, but we're doing? You're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, we're following all the ADA and handicap requirements as if this were a new building.
And the on your timeline, when do you anticipate actual demolition to begin?
We hope in the 3rd quarter of this year, of 23.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Is there any possibility that during the 3 years it's going to take to do the renovation? Am I wrong about the timeline, or is it 2 years?
Well, 3 years is an outside date. It's a timeline that we say that because we don't want to disappoint anybody. We hope to do it faster than 3. We don't imagine a circumstance that you can let longer than 3, but we would certainly hope it's faster.
Is there any possibility that the existing parking could be utilized during the construction process?
Yes, probably during the initial phase, just for safety reasons, it really can't be as we're doing demolition, but really the entire last year of construction, the parking garage can be used.
Okay. The loading dock on Florida Avenue side, that's a 40-foot, no, a 24-foot curb cut on the Florida Avenue side. It's existing curb cut, but I'm curious as to why you actually need that curb cut if you have your loading docks on the T Street side.
Just, I don't know if Ern wants to respond, but
Yeah, sure.
really to the scale of the project, the square footage and number of apartments is the short answer, but go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the T Street loading dock is envisioned to accommodate the residents on that side of the tower. The residential building consists of 2 towers. The one on Florida Avenue that's existing, we're maintaining that for the residents on that side, as well as for the majority of the retail is also going to be using that loading dock.
All right.
So in that respect, that's why we essentially need 2 loading areas.
This is a weird question, but how does rent control apply to this building? You're exempt if it's new construction, but has the city changed the law so that you're exempt for conversion?
The conversion rules are the same as new construction.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have now.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks.
Like I said, there's some questions in the chat. I'll go to at least one hand that's raised from the community. And if they don't hit them, I'll try to get to some. The person whose hand up is the phone number ending in 0296. The floor is yours whenever you're promoted. Here you go.
Yes, that's me. First, I should comment that I like the exterior design. I think it was very well done. The questions that I have are 2. First, how many parking spaces are going to be removed because of your new construction? The entrances and the loading docks, how many parking spaces on the street are going to be lost?
Erwin, can you answer how many street spaces will be lost?
Sure. So on Florida Avenue, given that the curb cuts are located in a place where there is no parking, no parking is allowed in those areas. We're not losing any on Florida Avenue. I believe on T Street, since we're introducing a curb cut to accommodate the loading area, I believe it's 1 on-street parking space.
There are lots of meters along Florida Avenue, the north side of Florida Avenue, where your building is. Why do you think that there aren't, that there wouldn't be lost spaces? I don't understand that.
Well, we're not introducing any additional curb cuts on T Street.
Florida Avenue is what I mentioned.
Yeah, so Florida Avenue, the area where we're introducing those two new curb cuts, in that area, we're right next to the crosswalks. As a result, I believe there's no parking there during non-peak hours, and during peak hours, there's actually no parking allowed at all because it becomes a travel lane.
But the crosswalks, you can park right up against a crosswalk. You cannot park right up against a curb cut. There's a 6-foot setback on
Yes,
either
I understand
side.
that, but if you look at the existing condition is such that the curb cut there that exists is 44 feet wide. So we're introducing two smaller curb cuts in the place where a 44-foot curb cut was. So those 2 are combined.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, I've never measured it, so I'm just familiar with the area, obviously. The second question that I had, what was it? Now I've lost it. Had to do with visitors to the residences. The problem with a lot of residences that in the area in Adams Morgan is that when parties occur or Saturday, over the weekend or whatever, that visitors come to the residences and require parking. Is your internal parking lot available? Will they have visitor parking spaces that can last for 4 hours, at a time?
So there's the parking within the building, underneath the building, a portion of it will be provided for the residents. And then there's going to be a portion of it that's available for the general public, and that includes users of the retail that are coming to use the retail, and then also would be available for visitors of the residents above.
Said another way, the number of spaces that exist there already, which we're keeping, are far more than we would do for just a new apartment building. There's probably double the number of spaces that people typically build for a new purpose-built apartment building, given the number of apartments there. So we think there's a good amount of extra parking, and we intend to offer public parking and guest parking.
And there's some great guest parking spaces that are that will be used for, like as for people who are looking at leasing during the day, but would be available for guests at night, that actually feed directly into the lobby by the concierge. So those would be ideal spaces for for the type of use that you're talking about.
Thanks so much. I'll try to get to as many of these questions in the chat without taking too much time. On the question of parking, there's a couple. One was the question of the costs incurred converting on-street parking to something else. Can anyone comment just on how that kind of decision is weighed in terms of the financial costs?
Of converting on-street parking. So I think we're only losing one total on-street parking spot on for the whole project on T Street, and really it's a function of converting it. It's a function of necessity for making it usable for residential. The usage and demand patterns of residential and office are a lot different. The amount of incoming traffic, deliveries, nighttime traffic, and all those things are just very different. Move in to move outs, and so really just there's not really a way to make the north wing of the property function without a modernly functional loading dock. If you were looking at it as a standalone new development of 500,000 square feet, which it is, it would be required to have a conforming new loading dock. So really, we're just trying to, in what we think is the least obtrusive possible place, allow for kind of the necessary loading standards.
Thank you. There's another question that was for clarification, was answered in the chat, which was if some of the parking will be available for retail. Yes, parking in the building will be dedicated and available for retail. I'll interrupt myself. Commissioner Stevens has her hand up. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to please hear about the sustainability goals of this development. If you can just talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Sure. Well, at a high level, the project will be LEED Gold. As a developer, we're very focused on sustainability. We built the first LEED Gold apartment tower in Philadelphia, or the first LEED certified. It was a goal. We've done many adaptive reuse. We actually recently completed adaptive reuse of a 1920s office building. It's beautiful Beaux-Arts building. It got LEED Gold certification, and so that really covers a lot in terms of both energy efficiency and kind of environmental quality. The LEED rating is not just about energy efficiency, which is a massive part of it, but it's a big part of it is environmental quality and the indoor environmental quality and the quality of the air you breathe and the light you see and all that kind of stuff. So, in addition to being LEED Gold, the property will burn no on-site carbon. It will use all electric heating, the most modern, efficient electric heating systems available. It will use actually a central electric hot water heat pump heating plant, which is really not, we're really pushing the envelope doing that in terms of providing a highly efficient central hot water heating plant we're having to kind of utilize specialty engineers that have never done projects like this before. We think it's the first project in the city to utilize this kind of highly efficient electric hot water heating. We plan to buy all the energy for the project. We plan to buy as certified renewable energy. And so I think that covers some of it. Gary, anything I would add to that? You'd add to that?
I think that's right. And basically, and then there as Mike was mentioning, along with all of that, in terms of the LEED Gold, the hot water heat pumps are pretty. They will be what we are doing, like 5 to 10 years from now on all projects, and this is, so this is pushing that forward in a really good way. And then the focus on indoor air quality in terms of the air, fresh air being delivered to all units, like and a super high quality, super high efficient, like VRF system for for heating and cooling, will rank this as one of the most sustainable buildings in the district. So and it's where we're spending a tremendous amount of our time with the post team and the engineering team, because the floor to floor heights in this building are not great, so that, so just, like it's a 1960s office building. So, so we're everyone is working super hard to basically make sure that we can get all of this stuff in, to those tight envelopes. Yep. So thanks for the question. We think we think we're doing a really good job on that score. Post is again, as I mentioned in the beginning, we look for clients that sort of where we have goal alignment on things like that, and Post is definitely there, and even pushing us in some areas.
Well, thank you for that. And related, this is one of the questions from the chat. So outside of kind of energy consumption and ecological sustainability impact, like social sustainability, is there any plans or any discussion of some sort of community space that's oriented towards public use to be put in the property? Is that a point that has come up before?
It's not a point that has come up. That is something we've done on other projects, really new construction. The challenge with this project is that it is built to its footprint. So it's not something that's really come up here.
Okay, a couple other questions in the chat. One, well, I guess two, just related to kind of traffic flows. So this is probably for Erwin, but one, pedestrian traffic during construction, will that be impeded? And if so, how will it be accommodated for? And then also related bus stops, will those be affected at all because of construction?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Erwin. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is relative to the bus stop isn't moving. It's something that we aren't proposing to modify at all. And then relative to the streetscape along Connecticut Avenue, at some point during construction, we are going to upgrade some of the streetscape along Connecticut Avenue, which might require the sidewalk to be closed. But it's been our experience that DDOT has been very reluctant to close sidewalks altogether. So there might be a condition where we might have to use the existing parking lane on Connecticut Avenue in the interim, where the pedestrians would be protected, but they wouldn't have to cross the street. So that is something that I've seen systematically throughout the district, where the district is trying to maintain active pedestrian paths even during construction.
That's good to hear. And I can't speak directly for that area because I don't represent it, but I know in the past there have been constituents who have reached out with very serious concerns of the dangers of being a pedestrian near that intersection. So please do take that seriously. Commissioner Fauschini, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to flag for you all on the design team that DDOT is currently undergoing a Connecticut Avenue sidewalk and rescaping project that they're hoping will begin construction at the end of 2023 and go through 2026. The last phasing that I saw of this had your section of Connecticut where this building will be being in the later slate of the worked phasing. So probably towards the end of 2026 is when they would get towards those sidewalks and streets that are up by you. But you should just make sure that you're aligning with DDOT on their goals for those projects, so that whatever work and landscaping that you do, it, doesn't conflict with what they're trying to do for that streetscape improvement.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So kind of wrapping up, just a couple others questions I want to get to. One question, I think it was in Gary's presentation that there's a section of the building that was labeled as poorly designed. Could you just briefly comment on what made that design poorly and for whom?
So I had mentioned
Existing penthouse, yeah.
Yeah, I had mentioned that the penthouses were, sort of in poor shape, and so they were, they're basically a series of sheds that have accumulated on the, on the roofs, and basically with the exposure to weather, have not fared particularly well. So they're, again, we think we're doing, we're doing a radical transformation of all of the facades, of the building, but the upgrades to the penthouse are probably an order of magnitude, more significant in terms of the, aesthetic upgrade that'll be done to those. So we, Post has insisted that they be fully integrated, into the design of the building using, similar language and similar materials in order to just have that all be of a piece, including screening all of the mechanicals. The existing situation is not pretty either aesthetically or in terms of its condition.
All right, thank you. And kind of related to that, my earlier repetition of a question I misphrased talking about on-street parking. The question was meant to address off-street, so inside the building. Just kind of briefly, the cost factors involved in converting something like the internal parking to other uses. How does that that could be a very long conversation. We don't want that today, but how does that kind of come into play?
I can talk about, so there a little bit about, about if we go back to that section, I think is the clearest part there, and so it's the least usable sections of, so that the south building is, the big triangular footprint. The interior of that is not usable for apartments at all, and so the parking level, most of the parking removals are in that upper area where we're creating a large portion of the amenity spaces for the building. And so it's a relatively straightforward removal of those parking floors on the interior of the donut, and then basically aligning the new construction, with that. So it's the best way we can get to utilize those, that space for something that's usable for the building, while eliminating parking that we felt was surplus. So that was, I hope so, Peter. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, not directly my question, but I appreciate it regardless. I do believe the other questions regarding retail were addressed in the chat. I'll just repeat it verbatim. Our retail strategy is to hold out for high quality retail and restaurants that continue to our effort to activate the streetscape surrounding the building. Any other questions, comments from commissioners? I appreciate your time so much. It looks like we have no one else. Thank you so much. There was a lot of helpful information. There's no motion on the floor for us to vote on, so this is just informational and was really helpful as well.
So, Commissioner, one thing before we leave, there's also another element relative to our future approvals. So we're going before the BZA. In addition to that, we are going before DDOT public space. And I believe the hearing for that is February 13th. And so we would like your support for our proposed access scheme relative to this plan to help move this project forward.
Okay, and that's definitely something that we can coordinate. I believe the timeline for that would match with our January PZT meeting, which is planning committee, to be able to consider that in February. So,
okay,
yeah, looking forward to considering it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. That concludes the presentation on the Universal Building. We'll move to our next agenda item. There are two related items, so I'll just kind of quickly comment on why that is. So the December Alcoholic Beverage Control Committee, we considered a resolution that addresses the Adams Morgan moratorium zone, which is set to expire in February. In order for it to expire, and there would no comment would be needed, but it's important to foster community input and discussion, and there's probably some value in putting into writing the ANC's view one way or another. So we discussed that, and also discussed the possibility of supporting a resolution that would temporarily extend the moratorium by some amount of days in order to facilitate more community input and perhaps some other benefits. So both of those are in reverse order that I mentioned them on the agenda. Editorializing for myself, in the event that the temporary extension would get passed, I wouldn't expect to hold a vote tonight, but I do think there's value to, allow people to comment on the resolution, even though we wouldn't be voting on it this evening. But we can start. I'll move to hopefully discuss the first item, which is the resolution on 45-day extension. Can I get a second for discussion?
Second.
Any questions, comments? I can go in further. Other commissioners, I believe, could as well, about the content. This makes sense what is on the table.
Wait a minute. Somehow.
You lost them?
There we go.
Commissioner Shapiro, go ahead.
Somehow I got disconnected for a moment there. I'm a little concerned about the 45 days. I don't really think that gives us enough time to update the existing information, much of which dates from 2004, 2010, 2014, and the most recent thing would be 2018. I would propose that rather than 45 days, I propose a friendly substitution of 90 days. That would allow us at least 45 days of research before we were to come back and meet as a commission in, say, March or April, and have more information.
Yeah, that's an important point. That was actually, for transparency, the original recommended date that we discussed last month, and we settled on 45 as compromise, but we've kind of had some other conversations about what the ideal timeline would be. I mean, if we were in a perfect world, we'd be fully informed always, and someone else would pay for the studies always, right? But we don't live in that world. So it's a bit tricky. For our collective sake, because this was also kind of a procedural question that came up last month, which is related to friendly amendments, just for our own information. If anyone objects to a friendly amendment, regardless if you wrote the resolution or not, you can say so, and then we can decide if we want to bring it to a vote. But I will accept that. I wrote did I write it? No, I did not write the resolution, but I was on the committee. So I'll accept that if no one else has any objection to the 90-day. Do we have any other questions or comments on that decision? All right, I'll add that in. Yeah, like we already mentioned, if we had more time and security to know that there would be some sort of kind of formal academic process to evaluating the data of vacancies and things like that, it'd be ideal. So it doesn't seem to be clear that that will be something we'll have access to, but in the meantime, it's definitely helpful to get community input and just for us to kind of reflect on the situation with the information that is available. Commissioner Shapiro, you have another comment?
No.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Any questions or comments from members of the community who are attending? So with that, I will bring it to a vote. The motion on the floor is for, and I'll actually just edit this so it technically has the right number. The motion on the floor is to support a resolution requesting that ABRA extends the Adams Morgan moratorium zone for 90 days in order to foster more community input and reflection on what our final recommendation will be. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. So like I said, there's another item, which is the resolution that discusses taking a position on the moratorium. Like just for the sake of community input, any questions, comments on just the content of this? Don't expect to, I'm going to, in a bit, move to postpone it to another meeting. But in the meantime, I think it's helpful for us to just put some comments on the floor, just because we're a new commission. Anyone have any questions or comments? Commissioners committee, or commissioners attendees, excuse me. There is one, I believe it is from the caller whose number ends in 7411. The floor is yours when you're ready. Looks like you're connecting. Once you're off mute, we'll be able to hear you. Phone caller, you are, I believe, promoted. As long as you unmute, we should be able to hear your comments. Are you able to hear me? I guess you wouldn't be able to respond if you couldn't. All right, while we're resolving this, just briefly, Commissioner Fauskini, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just trying to get in line. But I just wanted to remind us that the 45 days was written a few times throughout that document. So we just need to go in and make sure that we catch all of them. And then also, I think that there is a world in which we are able to get better information than what we have right now. But I would caution that we, not kind of kid ourselves that we have the sort of budget or ability to get perfect information in this. So I created a Google form that I sent out to folks that live in my SMD. I'm happy to share that with other commissioners that they can send out something similar to gather feedback from their SMDs as well on this topic. But I think that the responses that I got back were not completely in line with the emails that I received. And I would say actually very different from the emails that I received, in that nearly 70% of the respondents that filled out my survey said that they wanted to do away with the moratorium zone in some form or another. And so I think actually when the public is engaged and folks are spoken with, and it's not just one particular constituency that's emailing, that we'll actually find that there is actually more public appetite for getting a more thriving business community along 18th, opening it up for different types of businesses that have been closed down through the moratorium zone, others where we've had just negative externalities that we didn't necessarily anticipate through the moratorium zone, that those types of businesses were not allowed to come into the neighborhood. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity actually to better represent our neighborhood and not just one particular constituency that has a high email propensity.
Thank you for those comments. Caller 7411 number, are you able to unmute? We'd love to hear you if you can. It looks like we're still having trouble. There's another attendee that has a hand up. No, it's the same one.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Am I being heard now?
You are.
Okay, yeah. This is Dennis James. I'm president of Calorama Citizens Association, and we've been involved in seeking all the different moratoriums that have been granted by the ABC board over the years since the year 2000. It may be hard to understand how bad things used to be. And the reason we have stayed so committed to supporting a moratorium and then altering it somewhat so that new restaurants could come is we just don't want it to degrade to what it was in the past. There was a lot of violence. There was a lot of lawlessness. There was practically no regulation of any kind. Now, a moratorium is not a regulatory instrument. It's passive. It just says, we're going to stop things from getting worse because of the presence of certain license classes. And the ABC board is the one that makes the decision. They can look at evidence that's presented and see that a certain kind of license class seems to have more problems than others. And it's not an economic development tool, as was just suggested. There's not a single additional regulatory item requirement associated with having a moratorium zone. Not one licensee within the moratorium zone, an ABC licensee, is affected in the slightest by the fact that there is a moratorium. And we don't have any nightclubs. We never have had a nightclub, but we have a lot of restaurants and taverns that have quite a bit of entertainment and other things like cover charges. And they do act somewhat like nightclubs. And after midnight, when you don't have a food requirement anymore, a lot of places seem more like nightclubs than they do like restaurants. But nevertheless, I think that, you know, restaurants coming are good for the neighborhood, all members of the community, including children, you know, to attend restaurants with their parents, as opposed to having a strip that was so notorious that decent applicants didn't even want to come here. That's been part of the problem over the many years. But I think we've gotten over that. The COVID pandemic has hurt numerous businesses across the width of types of businesses that there are, but in particular those where you attend them, you go there in person. So therefore, there seems to have been some late drop off. You know, some places couldn't cut it through the whole COVID situation. But to get to the point of this, the resolution, which talks about, you know, why do we have a moratorium? Do we want to have one? And if so, what are the changes that we want in it? If you're going to be entering a period of listening to the community, I don't think you should be taking up this resolution at all, because it goes to a conclusion that there should be 25 tavern licenses. We already have 16, and all the moratoriums since 2004 have said that no new tavern license can be issued until the number of taverns goes below 10. So there would need to be 9. So we're very long distance away from there being 9. You know, we already have 16. So to say there's room to have 9 more is, I think, extreme when you consider that there aren't that many spaces available. While there are currently numerous storefronts which are empty, quite a few of them have a planned business that's on its way there. Some of them have ABC licenses already agreed to. For instance, Oh Mama Grill on Columbia Road, and Jesserie, I think it's called, on 18th Street, and others are in the works. So, you know, again, it's not really an economic development tool. It's not nice to see all of the empty spaces, but don't blame it on the moratorium. The moratorium doesn't prevent any business from coming here except a nightclub or more taverns. There are already numerous taverns. So I would hope that the ANC wouldn't, after saying it's going to take some time to study the situation, approve this resolution, you know, which, by the way, also has quite a bit of incorrect information in it. It's really kind of shocking that it makes these claims about detrimental effects on the Adams-Morgan community, negative impacts on small business development and retention. The moratorium doesn't do anything to that. It just says no more of a certain thing. So, and then the other comments about the claims in the resolution about other neighborhoods, most of those are incorrect or could be more fully understood if you would look further. For instance, Glover Park renewed their moratorium as it had been, but this claims that it did away with its moratorium. Anyway, I won't go on and on about those things. The main point is the bottom line, and that would be, it's great that in the committee, this resolution was changed to say 0 nightclubs. And to do that, everyone understood that you needed to have the structure of a moratorium to do it within. The big problem is the number of taverns. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say today. And I hope, oh, I know one further thing. It goes along with the first resolution that you approved. That would be to set up some kind of a schedule where it was known that community members could speak and comment about the moratorium. So instead of it being random. Anyway, thanks very much. And if anybody has any questions, I could gladly stay on the line.
I think we'll be okay. I do want to address a couple of things just in general. Last point, literally you speaking right now was an example of you participating in community input. So I appreciate that. Also had it last month. Also anticipate having at least a couple more. Also, I think we all have email access, and I know the previous commissioners did as well. So we're open to receiving emails, and we're all neighbors, so we can always speak to each other in other circumstances as well. I appreciate everyone who has been fact checking during in the comments section. Always encourage people to make factually accurate claims. For clarification, tavern licenses don't necessarily need to be used by places that intend to market themselves as bars or taverns. It's an institution that wishes to sell alcohol without having a minimum requirement for food sales. So that's important context to add. I think that was addressed in the comments. We have a couple of hands from the audience. We'll get to those. Ernest, I believe your hand is up first. Welcome. Love to hear from you.
Hi, yes. My name is Ernest. I am a current board member of the Reed Cook Neighborhood Association and former president. I've lived in the area since 2007. I concur with everything that my good friend had said before, but I just wanted to add that the moratorium does not stop any other type of business from coming in to Adams Morgan. During my time as president and my time in Adams Morgan, I've always hoped that other types of businesses would come here. I've seen them close up and not reopen. Retail, clothing, the basic services, but they can't get those spots because those landlords are waiting for a liquor establishment to come. The rents are so high that they can't afford them. And there's examples all through Adams Morgan, Columbia Road, Mount Pleasant, where that is happening. And the moratorium, during times that I've supported it here in Adams Morgan, has prevented places like New York, in which they had 3 shootings, never really had a liquor license to be taken away, and opened up dancing, paid admission. And Adams Morgan is more than 18th Street. If you live in Adams Morgan, you don't live on 18th Street, that's where the problems start and end. The amount of trash that was picked up, or we had to pick up on our street alone after a weekend, all the way out to 16th Street, where kids will come into town, not residents, kids will come into town and leave their trash from whatever they go to buy a liquor source in pieces, eat, and then go party on 18th Street. And then we would have to clean it up or wait until the city got around to it. All I'm saying is do your 90-day. We'll get as much input that we can and get you the data that you're looking for, because AMBRA does keep a lot of that. I'm sure Dennis has a lot of that. And I'm sure that members of our organizations and my friends who have participated in the moratorium on several occasions throughout the 15, 16 years that I've been here will be able to provide you with. But guaranteed, and this is just me saying, guaranteed, if you lose the moratorium, liquor licenses will prevail, and they won't be restaurants, they won't be Mentwood places, they will be party places. Young people having a good time. Not say that I didn't have a good time when I was a young person. I just don't go around doing the things that we've had to deal with over the last 15 to 20 years in Adams Morgan. But those are my comments complete. I thank you for your time.
I really appreciate it. And to kind of reiterate from what we discussed at last month's committee meeting, you hit on a lot of the nuance that is, admittedly a pretty tricky balance. So I can speak for myself that trying to incorporate as many of those views into discussion as possible, and really appreciate your comments. We're going to jump back. I believe there was a community member, but we'll go to Commissioner Laughlin, whose hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Commissioner Wood. I had a chance to watch the full 3 hours of the ABC meeting from last month, so that was really helpful for me as a new commissioner coming in. I do plan to survey my SMD 1C06 to sort of get some feedback from my constituents, because I don't want to just hear from the loudest voices, because those often are trained to do that or have some expertise or support to do that. I think it's really important that we reach out to those who might be more apathetic about it or don't know who to contact to talk to about this. So I definitely will do that. I do also recommend to the other commissioners and residents of the area to revisit, and I think if we can find the link to post it somewhere, it'd be helpful, the Fiscal Policy Institute report that was done, I think around 2013. I think it was really well done. If you all know Ed Lazier, he was behind it. So I really trust his work and what he was doing. And I think it points out that it's important to we don't want to use a blunt tool to approach these problems. We need to do small steps, to do increments to sort of help our community, both its businesses, its nightlife. And when I talk to other community members and even my friends, Adams Morgan is a destination and it is for certain reasons, and it does have a nightlife that people very much enjoy, but we know that we also need to support our residents. But I do recommend revisiting that. I don't know if we as a commission can afford to get another study like that, but honestly, disregarding COVID, certain circumstances haven't changed that much. So I think it very much applies. So it's worth to revisit that. And I just want to commend the previous commissioners who were on the commission the last 2 years for the work they've done on this. I can already tell the small steps that were made to the current resolution, sort of the mitigation of limiting to 25 taverns, which I think is a really good compromise. And I think that is sort of maybe the method we'll take forward, is finding places that we can meet and compromise on certain things and meet the best needs of our community and the businesses. And thank you.
I appreciate that. And it does bring an important point, which is that we don't write the policy. As commissioners, we make suggestions to the relevant policymakers. And in this case, it would be ABRA. So they take us for great weight. This is an important issue that we get to have a say in. And I think we're doing a good job of getting as much kind of input from the community as we can. And just kind of to sum up, a few different people have mentioned things like accuracy of claims and accuracy of data. If anyone has data sets, anyone has something that is empirical evidence of different patterns and causation more than just correlation or the lack thereof, please share that. I think we're lucky we have at least two of us who have pretty high expertise or training in doing and evaluating those types of studies. And just collectively, we're all elected because we have those skills at listening to people and evaluating the information. So I can speak for myself and hopefully everyone in saying that my ears are open. There's one other hand in the community. Okay, I believe it's Leslie. Your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Hi, great to be able to participate. I'm very glad that you passed the resolution to seek an extension of 90 days. I think that's absolutely essential. It's extremely important to have a structured public process for community input. This is a contentious issue in the neighborhood. And I think the idea of seeking information is critical. Seeking information from constituents. In my experience, most people are not plugged into the ANC. Very few are avid followers. So reaching out actively, I think, is a great idea. Unfortunately, I do not have a representative right now because Howard, I hope he is recovering well. I'd be very happy to answer any of your surveys in the meantime until we get an ANC commissioner. I did have a comment about the 2013 study, which I must say, I mean, it is 10 years old and it shows it because it assumes all of its analysis, some of which found its way into that second resolution, is based on there being no new restaurant licenses. So that's pretty much out of date. And there's a lot of unattributed anecdotes in it, but I mean, that being said, it does identify a number of the problems. So it's good from that point of view. I mean, I guess the bottom line is, thank you for the extension, but from my point of view, and I did not move to the neighborhood for the nightlife, although I've been here quite a long time, that how exactly are more taverns, which is what we're talking about, going to improve the neighborhood? And I think that's really the bottom line that we're looking at. So I appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I think one important clarification, just for everyone's sake, we don't actually, as a commission, get to decide if there's an extension. We get to request it from ABRA, hoping that they go with what we say. We can't, make the decision for them. But the actual extension, just because we voted today, it wasn't actually approved. A letter goes to ABRA, and then we'll have a word back from them. I think that this fits right in their schedule, so they'll be able to respond before the moratorium is scheduled to expire. At least that was the plan. So we'll see how it goes. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the community, from commissioners? This has been fruitful already. It's been a long-ish first meeting. I'm going to move that the resolution is postponed until the February meeting, with a caveat, which maybe isn't even necessary to make formal, but informally suggest that we have an informational agenda item for the January ABC committee meeting, just so there's additional further input. Can I get a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, questions about the motion on the floor, which is to postpone the resolution to be considered at the February full ANC meeting? All right, seeing as there are none, bring it to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? We're what, 3 for 3, all unanimous votes tonight. Thank you, everyone. This is a great start to the new year. I'm excited for all of us to continue working together. And thank you to everyone who attended. These meetings are often boring, so I appreciate that you came, and a lot of really important and fruitful comments, both in the chat section and through people speaking. So appreciate it. I will move to adjourn.